Let's move into some federal issues. Robert Sims, let me get your thoughts. I'm really interested to get your thoughts on where we go with this proposed plebiscite on same-sex marriage. It looks like it's got no chance of getting through the parliament now, realistically. I guess my question for you is where to from here once that's the case? Because the government, I don't see them supporting a free vote in the parliament. So are we just left in a scenario where would the LGBTI community prefer nothing happens for 3 years to going through the process of a plebiscite?
Well, Peter, I think the first step is for the Senate to block the plebiscite, and although the Labor Party have certainly been suggesting that that's what they're going to do, that's not yet clear at this stage, but I hope that they do block the plebiscite. I don't agree with your assessment, though, that then that means there's going to be no action for 3 years, because I think actually that the community want action on this issue and they want the Parliament to legislate. And I think for Malcolm Turnbull, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to resist the momentum that's building for marriage equality from now up until the next election. And I would have thought that it's not in his interest to go to the polls, whenever that may be, with this issue still hanging over his head. And also, let's remember, it would be the first election where the Labor Party would have a binding position, where actually they could say from 2019 they would legislate to make it law, because at the moment it's only a conscience vote on the Labor Party's side. So heading into the next election, there would be a clear choice potentially between Malcolm Turnbull and Bill Shorten in terms of saying, if you want marriage equality, vote Labor, and put them into government, of course, with the Greens in the Senate, who also support this. But, you know, I think that's something that Malcolm Turnbull won't want going into the next election.
Do you agree with that, Matt Burney?
Well, look, if ever you wanted evidence that the Greens political party are irrational, illogical and have their heads in the cloud, you only need to look at their position on a plebiscite on same-sex marriage. I mean, you know, I've got news for everybody, Robert included. The Liberal Party aren't out there beating the drum for same-sex marriage. This isn't at the top of the Liberal Party's list.
and doing everything they can to prevent it.
Yeah, but producing a plebiscite for same-sex marriage is a massive leap for the Liberal Party. If the Greens and the Labor Party want to block it, that's the end of it. There won't be anybody within the Liberal Party say, well, how can we make it happen another way? And so, you know, on the one hand, you've had the Greens political party for as long as you can remember advocating you know, same-sex marriage. Here's their best opportunity probably ever, and for just silly political reasons they say, well, no, we're going to block a plebiscite because we don't want the people of Australia to decide whether this is the right policy or not. I mean, illogical, irrational, silly political party. That's the only way I can describe the Greens, sadly, particularly over
Matt,
this issue.
Robert, your response?
Matt, if you want to talk about irrationality, Matt, maybe you should look at the Liberal Party's position. I mean, this is a party that believes that you can send troops to war without a vote of the Parliament. This is a party that believes that members of Parliament should be bound on locking children behind razor wire on Manus Island. But apparently when it comes to whether or not loving same-sex couples should be able to marry, the issue is so complex and of such a difficult moral dimension, it needs to be put to every Australian through popular vote. I mean, I've never heard such a ludicrous proposition, but that's the position of the Liberal Party. You're dead right, there is no passion within the Liberal Party to legislate for marriage equality. That's why they're doing everything they can to drag their heels, and that's what this plebiscite has been proposed to do. But the point that I'm making is that the Australian people want to see action on this, and ultimately, Prime Minister Turnbull needs to be pragmatic here. If he wants to go to the next election as the Prime Minister that has failed to deliver on marriage equality for 3 years, then that's on his head. But I'm hopeful that ultimately he will recognise...
Hang on, it's on the Greens' head, because Turnbull has said, let's have a plebiscite, and the Greens are saying we're going to use our numbers to block it. Now, you know, one thing that's worth thinking about in this whole equation is that the institution of marriage is the foundation stone of our society, and that institution predates the institution of government. That's how long that institution of marriage has been around for. And so if you're going to tinker with it, in fact, if you're going to turn it on its head, it's pretty reasonable that you would go to the people and say, what do you think? But the Greens just want it all their own way like they always have. And you know what? I think they're playing a dangerous game, because it will probably sink with this vote in the Senate, and it won't rear its head for a very, very long time.
That's completely untrue. That's completely untrue, Matt. And, you know, same-sex relationships have been around for a pretty long time as well. The reality is that people accept that marriage equality is going to happen in this country. The whole reason why the Greens don't support a plebiscite...
You don't want the people to have a say.
Please let me finish. Please let me finish. I listen to you. The whole reason why the Greens and the Labor Party and others, I think, are concerned about a plebiscite is they don't want to see a huge campaign being levelled against the LGBTI community and the huge impact that that would have on the mental health and well-being of the community.
Let me get a reaction to that.
That's why people are concerned.
Let me get a reaction to that. Matt Burney, your reaction to that argument, that has been Bill Shorten's argument as well, that there is concern, that experts have this concern about the mental health impacts of a rights-based popular vote debate.
Well, I think it's rubbish. And when you look at the debate to date, the most militant people that I've seen are the people that are in the gay and lesbian community. There are some very militant people out there in the gay and lesbian community who are shouting their view from the rooftop. So, you know, far from being these, you know, sort of wilting flowers in the corner who are incapable of defending themselves, my experience and certainly my observation is that the gay and lesbian community are more than capable and able of defending themselves and more than capable and able of raising their arguments publicly. And look, the reality is, you know, Robert says the public want this, but he doesn't want to actually test to see if the public do want it or not. They've got an opportunity now to be proven either right or wrong, and they're choosing at the 11th hour not to take that opportunity.
Robert Sims?
Matt, you say that LGBTI people aren't, you know, wilting in the corner. Well, you know, have you actually spoken to young LGBTI people? You know, young people that might be dealing with their own journey with sexuality or gender identity and asked them how they might feel? You know, when I was at school, I was bullied for being gay, and that was a pretty difficult experience. I hate to imagine how I would have felt if I saw placards, billboards, radio ads, TV ads telling me that my feelings are unnatural and somehow dangerous. And I think that can have a really terrible impact on people. So I'd be very careful about making these sweeping statements without actually talking to people who are going to be directly affected. The Greens have been talking to people, the Labor Party and the crossbenchers have been talking to people in the community as well, and that's why they don't support this plebiscite.
Yeah, but even if you're right, Robert, you can't avoid a robust democratic debate in this country because you're concerned that one side of the debate might be upset by it. I mean, that's just not how democracy works. You don't sweep it under the carpet for fear of upsetting one side or the other. You get it out on the table and you debate it, and where possible you give the people an opportunity to decide.
Well, you know how democracy works in this country. We have a parliamentary democracy and we elect members of parliament to make these decisions. And as I said before, why is it that this issue has been singled out for this plebiscite plan? Why don't we have plebiscites on a range of other issues? The reality is the Conservative forces in the Liberal Party are proposing the plebiscite as a delaying tactic. It's a political ploy, and the LGBTI community in this country shouldn't be used as pawns in Malcolm Turnbull's efforts to hold on to his job. It's not ethical, it's not appropriate.
Let me jump in because we're almost out of time, but Matt Burney, I am interested in getting a response to one final point that Robert made there. What about opening the doors to more plebiscites, more participatory democracy, not just on any policy issue? I realise that this has got a particular niche to it as the type of issue that it is, but it would be no different in that sort of conscience vote environment to an issue, say, like euthanasia, and whether or not to open up a plebiscite debate on euthanasia. And that wouldn't even carry to anywhere near the same extent, having a popular vote on rights, which is something that a lot of people don't like. Would you be open to that, or is this just genuinely a once-off?
Yeah, I'll deal with that in a second. Robert did say that he thinks that this is a delaying tactic on the part of the Conservatives within the Liberal Party. Well, the reality is the only people that are delaying it are those Green and Labor senators in the Senate who at least are indicating that they're going to vote it down. Now, that's the greatest delaying tactic. If the Liberal Party had their way, this would just go to a vote of the people, and very soon. So it's hardly a delaying tactic. Look, with respect to the broader issue, should there be more plebiscites? Possibly, but the reality is every issue needs to stand on its own merits in terms of whether it's an issue suitable to be put to the people or not. When you have an institution like marriage that is the foundation stone of our community, that predates a lot of other societal institutions, then to my mind this is almost the perfect issue to go to a plebiscite, and every issue from now on in should be just dealt with on its merits, and it would have to have a number of similarities to this one before you would use that plebiscite tool.
Gentlemen, we are out of time. I've got a sneaking suspicion I'm not going to bring you together on this particular issue, but we'll have other issues to discuss in the weeks ahead. Robert Sims and Matt Burney, appreciate you both joining me today. Thanks for your company.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you both.